I lived a life that seemed perfectly normal. Each morning began with the same routine, waking up to the steady sound of my alarm, making a cup of coffee and preparing for the day ahead. My husband and I shared a home that, to an outsider, looked warm and full of promise. Yet beneath that calm surface I carried a secret that grew heavier with each passing day. A secret that promised excitement but threatened to destroy everything. It started slowly, almost without my noticing. I met someone who made me feel alive again, in small moments, a shared smile, a kind word, a gentle touch. I rediscovered a passion I had long forgotten. His presence stirred something deep inside me. I began to look forward to our quiet moments together, away from the familiar routines of home. Every stolen conversation, every secret meeting, filled me with a mixture of joy and dread. I felt alive in those moments, yet the guilt of my hidden life pressed on me when I returned to my daily routine. At first I believed that this secret connection would remain just that, a private escape, a brief respite from a life that had become too predictable. I told myself that the thrill was harmless, a simple distraction from the monotony of everyday life. But as the days turned into weeks, the contrast between my two worlds became impossible to ignore. The excitement of our meetings clashed with the guilt I felt when I walked through the door at home. I would glance at my phone, heart pounding, wondering if a missed call might reveal the truth I desperately wanted to hide. Every smile I forced for my husband felt like a mask that concealed a painful reality. Slowly, subtle changes began to show. My husband, once entirely trusting, started to notice the small discrepancies. A late return from work, a look of worry in my eyes, a hesitant pause before I answered his questions. His warm, familiar gaze began to harden with quiet suspicion. Friends and relatives made offhand remarks like, "You seem distracted lately," or "Is everything all right?" Each comment deepened my inner conflict, reminding me that secrets have a way of surfacing when least expected. The thrill of forbidden passion was slowly being replaced by the dread of discovery. Then, one day, everything changed. In the midst of a family gathering, a time when laughter and shared memories should have filled the room, my husband's voice broke through the conversation with an announcement that froze everyone in place. He spoke in a clear, firm tone, declaring that he knew about my affair. In that moment, the life I had built began to crumble. I saw shock in the eyes of my family, anger in the faces of friends, and deep hurt in the expressions of those who had once trusted me implicitly. His words were simple, yet they cut me deeply. My secret was no longer mine to bear, and there was no turning back. The room grew heavy with silence, each person processing the painful truth in their own way. I tried to speak, to offer an explanation or a plea for forgiveness, but the words caught in my throat. My husband continued, his voice trembling with a mix of sorrow and anger. "I trusted you, and you have broken that trust." I could feel the weight of every disappointed look and every whispered question. "How could you do this? What were you thinking?" The hurt in those voices echoed through me, leaving no doubt that I had lost something precious. In the days that followed, the fallout was as brutal as I had feared. The warm, welcoming home that had once been our safe haven turned into a place filled with cold stares and heavy silences. My husband's presence became distant and reserved, his trust shattered beyond repair. Family members who had once embraced me now kept their distance, their eyes filled with a mix of pity and reproach. I was left alone with the crushing realization that my mistake had cost me everything I held dear. Every day became a struggle to piece together a life that no longer felt whole. I sat quietly in rooms that once echoed with laughter, each moment a painful reminder of what had been lost. The The simple joy I once found in daily routines was replaced by a lingering sadness that weighed on every step I took. I tried to reach out to mend the broken ties, but the damage was too deep. Every attempt to apologize, every tearful conversation seemed to open old wounds that refused to heal. The love and trust I had taken for granted were now shadows of their former selves, disappearing into a past that could never be reclaimed. At night, the silence was unbearable. I would lie awake, haunted by memories of our secret meetings and the thrill that once made me feel so alive. Instead, I was left with a heavy heart full of regret and sorrow. The excitement that had once lured me into a dangerous dance had turned into a relentless nightmare. I was trapped between two worlds, one that promised passion and one that demanded loyalty, and I had failed both. Every decision I made, every secret I kept, had led me to this painful point of no return. Now, as I face each new day, I carry the burden of my choices with me. I know that I have lost not only the trust of my husband, but also the respect and love of my entire family. The cost of that fleeting moment of forbidden passion is a lifetime of regret. I search for solace in the small comforts of everyday life, but nothing can erase the deep scars left behind by that one irreversible mistake. I often wonder if there is any chance for redemption, any hope of rebuilding what has been broken. But the path ahead is uncertain, shrouded in the pain of what once was, and the fear of what may never be again. The memory of that fateful day when the truth was laid bare for all to see is a constant reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the devastating power of a single choice. I lost my family because I let a moment of desire overshadow everything else. Now, every day is a lesson in the heavy cost of secrets, and every heartbeat is a reminder of the love that I can never reclaim. The life I once knew is gone, replaced by a void filled with regret and the silent echo of broken promises. The secret that once made me feel so alive now serves as a chain, binding me to a past that I can never escape. This is the price I pay for my mistake, a price that has left me alone, surrounded by memories of what once was, and the painful reality of what I have lost. The journey to forgive myself may be long, but I must learn to live with the consequences of my actions every day. And so I move forward, carrying the weight of my regret as I try to find a way to face the future, knowing that some wounds may never heal and that every moment is a reminder of the family I lost when the truth came crashing down. I wake up each day feeling the pull between two worlds. The thrill of meeting him sends a rush of excitement through my body, even as a heavy cloud of guilt settles in the pit of my stomach. Every secret moment we share feels like a brief escape from a life that has grown too predictable. In quiet corners of a small cafe or on a secluded park bench, our words are simple and soft, spoken in a way that makes everything feel intimate and real. His gentle smile and warm touch remind me of a passion I once knew, a passion that now flickers in hidden spaces, away from the watchful eyes of those I love. When we meet, time seems to slow down. I can feel my heart beat faster as we talk about everyday things. A favourite book, the way sunlight filters through the trees, the sound of distant laughter in the park. Each word and each look deepens something inside me. In those moments I feel alive and free, as if the weight of my responsibilities melts away. Yet, even as I bask in the warmth of his presence, a nagging thought lingers. How long can I keep this hidden? Every smile and every whispered word is a secret that grows heavier with each passing day. At work, I struggle to concentrate. My mind drifts back to the memory of his touch and the sound of his soft voice. I catch myself glancing at my phone, wondering if there might be another message waiting, a message that promises another stolen moment. But the joy of that thought is quickly tempered by a rising fear. I worry that one day my secret might slip out, that the quiet hints I try so hard to hide will become too obvious to ignore. At home, the balance between my two lives begins to falter. My husband's eyes, once filled with warmth and trust, now search mine with a growing intensity. His questions, once gentle and caring, have started to carry a weight of suspicion. He casually asks about my late nights, the extra hours spent away from home, and the sudden phone calls that seem to come out of nowhere. Each question, though softly spoken, pierces the silence with its underlying doubt. I find myself stumbling for words, my heart pounding in a way that makes it impossible to answer honestly. Sometimes I catch a glimpse of disapproval in the eyes of friends and family. A co-worker's offhand remark, "You seem different these days," or a distant relative's subtle inquiry, "Is everything okay at home?" adds to the pressure that tightens around me. Their concern feels like a silent alarm that warns me of the inevitable day when the truth might burst forth. Each remark is a reminder that I am living on borrowed time, that every secret meeting, every shared laugh in those hidden places comes with a risk. Inside, I am torn by a constant battle. There is an undeniable excitement in the connection we share, a feeling of being seen and appreciated in ways that make me feel whole for a fleeting moment. His touch sparks a fire in me, and his words wrap around my heart like a soft promise of something more. But that very excitement is intertwined with a deep-seated guilt. I know that I am betraying a trust that has been built over years, a trust that my husband had placed in me without question. The contrast between the thrill of his presence and the reality of my life at home leaves me feeling conflicted and alone. Late at night, when the house falls silent, my thoughts become my only company. I lie awake, haunted by the knowledge of what I have done. I replay each secret encounter in my mind, feeling both the warmth of our connection and the cold bite of regret. I wonder if it is possible to continue living with such a dangerous secret, if the beauty of our brief escapes can ever outweigh the cost of losing the one person who has always been by my side. My heart is caught in a tug-of-war between the desire for passion and the need for stability, a war that seems impossible to win. I try to convince myself that love is worth the risk, that the moments of passion are proof that I am still capable of feeling deeply. But the more I cling to those moments, the more I sense the fragile balance of my life beginning to crack. Every tender word he speaks, every gentle touch, is also a reminder of the irreversible choices I have made. I can see the growing doubt in my husband's eyes, a look that speaks of unasked questions and a love that is slowly fading. Even the casual comments of friends and family, meant to be kind, only serve to highlight the secret that is eating away at my soul. In this hidden life, I feel isolated. The intimacy I share with him is a private haven, yet it comes at the cost of the trust and warmth that once defined my home. I am forced to live in two different worlds, each with its own set of joys and pains. The moments of passion provide a temporary escape, but they also remind me of everything I risk losing: the comfort of familiarity, the steady love of my husband, and the acceptance of those who once cared for me. Every day I face the growing fear that my secret will no longer be safe, that the delicate balance I have managed to maintain will shatter under the weight of truth. I am constantly aware that each meeting, each whispered word, brings me closer to a point of no return. Yet, even with that awareness, I find it impossible to let go. The love I feel in those hidden moments is like a forbidden fruit, sweet and irresistible, even as it poisons the life I have known. I realize that the cost of these secret meetings is high. With every stolen moment, I push away the stability and trust that form the foundation of my family. I know deep down that I am walking a dangerous path, one that could lead to irreversible heartbreak, and yet the pull of that forbidden passion is so strong that I cannot help but continue, even as the danger grows. I am caught in this delicate dance, balancing the thrill of secret love against the fear of losing everything. The excitement and guilt, the tenderness and the tension are all intertwined in a way that leaves me feeling both alive and utterly alone. Each day, as I return to a home that no longer feels like a sanctuary, I am reminded of the risk I have taken and the truth that waits just around the corner. And so I move forward, trapped between the love that makes me feel complete and the secret that threatens to tear it all apart. I still remember that day as if it were burned into my memory. It began like any other family gathering, with relatives arriving one by one, laughter echoing softly in the background, and a warm, familiar buzz of conversation. I tried to smile and greet everyone, holding on to the hope that the day would pass without incident. But underneath the calm surface, I knew that the secret I had carried for so long was about to burst forth in a way I could not control. In the middle of dinner, when the chatter had softened and everyone was quietly enjoying their meal, my husband stood up. His eyes, which I had known so well, were now cold and hard. He cleared his throat and the room fell silent. With a steady voice he spoke the words I had feared more than any other. "I know about your affair," he said, each word echoing in the sudden heavy quiet. "I have known for some time, and I can no longer keep this in the shadows." His voice did not tremble, but there was a raw pain in it that sent a chill through everyone present. The shock hit me like a wave. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as the words sank in. I looked around, and I saw the disbelief and hurt on the faces of our family and friends. My mother's eyes filled with tears, my sister's face turned pale, and even the older relatives exchanged looks of deep sorrow. There was no way to hide from the truth now. It was out for everyone to see. I tried to speak, to explain that I never intended to hurt anyone, that it was a mistake born of loneliness and longing. But as I opened my mouth, no words came out. The silence in the room grew thicker, almost suffocating, as each person processed the revelation in their own painful way. My husband's words had shattered the delicate balance we had maintained, and nothing could bring it back. One of our cousins, his voice trembling, asked, "How could you do this?" The question hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and I felt every bit of its weight. I wanted to say I was sorry, that I was deeply remorseful, but my throat was dry and my mind was blank. Instead, I could only stand there, feeling the full force of the betrayal I had committed, not just against him, but against everyone who had trusted me. My husband's face was a mixture of sorrow and anger as he continued. "I trusted you with our family," he said, his tone firm and unyielding. "You broke that trust. Our children, our home, everything we built together is now tainted by your choices." His words were simple and direct, yet they cut me deeply. I saw the pain in his eyes, and I knew that nothing I said could mend the hurt he was feeling. In that moment, our family, once a source of love and comfort, became a witness to the consequences of my actions. The immediate fallout was overwhelming. People began to whisper among themselves, their voices low and filled with sorrow. I could feel the cold stares and the silent judgment as my relatives slowly distanced themselves. My husband sat down, his face unreadable, while I was left standing there, paralyzed by regret and fear. The room, once filled with the warmth of togetherness, now felt like a place of isolation and heartbreak. Over the next few hours, the atmosphere in our home changed completely. The usual lightness of conversation was replaced by long silences and hushed tones. Family members who had once hugged me tightly now offered only distant looks, and even our children seemed confused and hurt, their innocent eyes reflecting the pain of betrayal. I could sense that each person was grappling with their own feelings of disbelief and sorrow, and I felt utterly alone amid the ruins of my choices. I tried to approach my husband, to reach out and say that I was sorry, that I understood the gravity of my mistake. But every time I spoke, his responses were short and cold, as if my words were nothing more than echoes in a void. He told me that trust, once broken, could not easily be rebuilt, and that the damage I had caused was too deep to repair. His voice was steady, but inside I could hear the finality in his tone, a clear statement that nothing could bring back what was lost. As the day wore on, I moved through our home like a ghost. The once comforting rooms now felt like prison cells, each corner a reminder of the life I had destroyed. I sat in the quiet of the living room, staring at old photographs of happier times, and I could not help but feel that every smile, every moment of joy captured in those pictures was now irreversibly marred by my betrayal. I felt the weight of every tear that had been shed, every word of disappointment that had been spoken. The echoes of that painful day reverberated in every silent corner. I attempted to gather the courage to speak to our family one by one, to apologize and explain that I had been lost and misguided, but every time I opened my mouth the words failed me. The hurt in their eyes was a mirror of my own self-loathing, and I could see that trust, once so strong, was now fragile and broken. There was no simple remedy for such deep wounds. In the following days, the impact of that public exposure spread far beyond our immediate family. Friends who had once shared our joy now whispered behind closed doors, and even casual acquaintances treated me with an uneasy mix of pity and reproach. I could no longer walk through the neighbourhood without feeling the sting of their judgment. Every glance felt like a reminder of the scandal that had ripped apart the foundation of my life. I began to understand that the real fallout was not just the loss of trust in one moment, but the gradual disintegration of everything that once mattered. My husband's cold silence, the distance in his eyes, and the rejection from family members all added up to a profound loneliness. I was left to grapple with the harsh reality that I had lost not only my family's love and respect, but also a part of myself that I could never regain. Every day became a battle against the memories of that moment, the moment when my secret was laid bare and my life changed forever. I would sit alone, recalling the sound of my husband's voice and the shocked expressions of our loved ones. The pain was constant, a reminder of the irreversible damage that one mistake can cause. I felt trapped in a cycle of regret, unable to escape the consequences of my actions. Now, as I move through each day, I carry the burden of that fateful revelation with me. I have learned that some choices come with a price that no amount of time or sorrow can fully repay. The family I once knew is gone, replaced by a void filled with broken trust and lingering heartache. I face each morning with a heavy heart, knowing that the life I took for granted is now a distant memory, one that I can only look back on with deep regret and a painful sense of loss. I know that forgiveness, if it ever comes, will be a long and difficult road. The journey to rebuild what has been shattered seems impossible, and yet I must live with the knowledge that every day is a reminder of the love I lost when the truth came crashing down. I move forward slowly, carrying the scars of that day, and I hope that one day, somehow, I can find a way to forgive myself for the mistakes that cost me everything I held dear. I apologize, but it seems I may not fully understand what is being requested. Could you clarify or provide further details for me so that I create the content you need? For 10 seconds I still wake up in the same bed, but everything feels different now. The house is quiet in a way it never was before. A silence filled with memories and regrets. I move through the empty rooms, each step reminding me of what I have lost. Once these walls echoed with laughter and warmth. Now they hold only the weight of my mistakes. Every morning as I make my coffee, I'm faced with the reality that nothing can bring back what has been shattered. I remember the day it all came out as if it were yesterday. My husband stood before everyone, his voice steady but his eyes brimming with hurt. In that moment, every lie I had carefully hidden was exposed, and with them went the trust that held our family together. I felt the sting of betrayal not only from his words, but from the disappointed looks of those who cared about us. That day, the life I knew crumbled into fragments of regret and sorrow. Now I wander through the rooms of this house feeling like a stranger in my own life. The familiar corners where we once shared secrets and laughter are now reminders of my deep regret. I sit for hours in the living room, looking at old photographs and trying to piece together a time when I was happy, when our family was whole. The faces in those pictures smile at me with warmth I no longer feel, and I can only wonder how quickly everything changed. There is a constant ache in my heart, a reminder that a single mistake can destroy years of love and trust. I try to find solace in small routines. I go for walks along the quiet streets, hoping that the fresh air might wash away some of the bitterness that lingers inside me. The sound of my footsteps on the pavement is a slow, steady beat that reminds me of the passage of time, a time that moves forward regardless of my grief. In the park, I sit on a bench for long moments, lost in thought, as if trying to understand how I ended up here. Each tree and each bird seems to whisper a story of renewal and hope, yet I feel weighed down by the burden of my past. There are moments, fleeting as they are, when I catch a glimpse of what life might have been if I had made different choices. I remember the tenderness in my husband's eyes before the truth emerged, the way his hand would gently brush mine during quiet evenings. Now, that warmth has been replaced by a distant coldness, and every look he gives is tinged with disappointment. I know that I have not only lost his love, but the respect of our family, and that realization haunts me with every passing day. My thoughts often drift to the secret meetings, to the forbidden passion that once made me feel alive. I recall the excitement and the thrill of those stolen moments, the way my heart would race with anticipation. But now those memories are bitter. They serve as a constant reminder that a momentary desire wasn't worth the irreversible damage it caused. I see the faces of our children in my mind, their eyes full of confusion and hurt, wondering why the love in our home has vanished. I wonder if they will ever be able to trust again or understand that sometimes adults make choices that lead to pain. I have tried to speak to my husband to explain how lost I feel, but words seem inadequate against the enormity of the hurt. When I approach him, he is distant, his responses clipped and cold. There are times when he looks right through me as if I am a ghost from a past that no longer exists. I have come to realize that rebuilding trust may be impossible, and that I must now live with the consequences of my actions. Every attempt at reconciliation feels like trying to mend shattered glass, a dangerous endeavor that could cut me all over again. In the quiet hours of the night, when the darkness surrounds me, I allow my thoughts to wander through all that has been lost. I think of the days when our home was filled with lively conversations and shared dreams. I remember the small moments of joy, the laughter at the dinner table, and the comfort of knowing that someone cared deeply for me. Those memories are now distant, almost like a life I once read about in a book. I am left with a deep sense of loneliness, a feeling that I am adrift in a sea of my own making. There is a part of me that still hopes for forgiveness, that clings to the idea that time might heal even the deepest wounds. I long for a future where I can face the world without the constant shadow of my past hanging over me. Yet I know that some scars never fully fade, and that every day is a reminder of the irreversible choices I made. The thought of forgiveness, of finding a way to live again, seems both distant and fragile. I have learned that some mistakes carve too deeply into the heart, leaving a mark that time alone cannot erase. I often ask myself if I deserve a second chance, if there is any way to atone for the pain I have caused. The answer is never clear. Some days the idea of redemption feels like a far-off dream, something that belongs to someone else's life. Other days I catch a glimmer of hope in a kind word from a friend or a moment of unexpected beauty in the world around me. These small lights push back against the darkness, even if just for a moment, and remind me that life, however fractured it may be, still moves forward. I live now with a heavy heart and a deep sense of responsibility for the hurt I have caused. The family I once knew is gone, replaced by an echo of what used to be, a reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the devastating impact of a single betrayal. I move through each day with the knowledge that every action has its consequences, and that the cost of a fleeting desire can be a lifetime of regret. I do not know what the future holds, or if there will ever be a time when the pain will ease enough for me to smile again without sorrow. All I can do is face each day as it comes, learning to live with the burden of my choices and hoping that, in time, I might find a way to forgive myself. The road ahead is uncertain and fraught with obstacles, but even in the depths of my despair, I cannot help but wonder if someday I will learn to live with the echoes of this past and find a small measure of peace.